Today's video is a little different than the videos I usually make. Instead of making something today, I'll be walking you through my collection of A Christmas Carol. I've been collecting copies of A Christmas Carol for probably about a decade now, and I really go for the ones that are more unusual. I have a few comic book versions, I have a little operetta version. I have some pretty cool ones, so check it out. These are in no particular order. This first one is a copy from 1968. It was actually the first copy that I got in my collection. My dad bought it from the school he used to teach at in one of their library sales. It's got some cool little illustrations. I really love the turkey end pages though, and cover. This one's just a little Barnes & Noble copy from 1994. No illustrations, just a pretty little book. This red one is from 1929. It's got a few different Charles Dickens Christmas stories in it. It's in really good shape still. This taupe version is one of my older copies. It's from 1932. It's very similar to the red one. This book with the dust jacket, whenever I see this, I always wonder why I have the dust jacket around, and then I remember that dust jacket is almost 100 years old, and it's kind of miraculous it's survived this long. This book, I couldn't get an exact year when I was researching it, but it's somewhere in the mid to late 20s. 1920s, of course. And it's in remarkably good shape. Little cat cameo. This little red copy. Metallic cover and page edges. It's another Barnes & Noble copy. This one's from 2013. It's a pretty little guy. This one is just a Target copy. It's from 2018, but it was in their little Bullseye Playground area. It was $5, and I really loved the illustrations in it. They're just really nice. It's also just a well-designed book. Like, it's got some really nice page layout in there. This is my favorite scene from A Christmas Carol. The ghost of Christmas present. I like how this one illustrates the ghost of Christmas yet to come as a sort of looming shadow. And then this one had the last illustration just built in as the end paper. Here is a sort of unique one. This is a record accompanying the Mickey's Christmas Carol. Well, sort of. I haven't listened to it, so frankly, I don't know what's on there. It has songs, so I assume it's accompanying that. But it also comes with a little booklet of the story, a very abridged, illustrated version of A Christmas Carol with all the Disney characters. And it is cast, well, almost the same way as Mickey's Christmas Carol. The record's from 1974. This next copy is a compilation of a bunch of different Christmas songs and stories. I can't find an exact date on it, but it's somewhere in the early 40s. And it has a cute little abridged version of A Christmas Carol in there. And a bunch of different Christmas carols. This is a copy illustrated by Greg Hildebrandt of the Brothers Hildebrandt. My dad got me this copy. He also introduced me to the artist. They illustrated a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. And in case you can't tell by my name being Lorian, my dad is kind of a Lord of the Rings nut. So this is just a beautifully illustrated copy. And that one's from 1983. This is an interesting copy. It was published in 1971, but it features the story printed on one page and the original manuscript of that text on the opposite. And from it I learned that Charles Dickens was a mess of a man. Look at that writing. Looks like my notebooks. Encouraging, I suppose. It's pretty cool, though. This is my most recent acquisition. This is called Scrooge's Christmas, and it is an operetta. This is just a little booklet of a stage play. It is my most baffling copy, as they decided that they needed to switch Bob Cratchit to being Scrooge's nephew. And they also have like Christmas ghouls and all sorts of wonderful little choruses. It is a musical. It has full staging and costuming instructions, which are often baffling. The ghouls are supposed to have humorous masks with long pointed or turned up noses, big eyes, some winking, mouths large and smiling, imitation long eyelashes of green, orange, or black. All are dressed as clowns and may be either girls or boys. The colors should contrast strongly, one perhaps of purple and red, while another is lemon and pink with brown trimming, a third to be yellow or purple. Horrifying. All of the lines for Mrs. Cratchit are marked, so whoever had this little libretta was Mrs. Cratchit. And then it has the best song of all time in it, called The Goodly Goose. This is a song all about how this goose they're eating had to die for them to eat it. Like, the goodly goose whose end was bad is one of the lyrics, and then there's that section where they just honk a bunch of times. Delightful. This is probably my most baffling copy, just because the changes they made were so strange. And this one is from sometime between the 1930s and the 1950s. It's hard to date exactly, but its coloring does look much more similar to the 1930s copies I've been able to find. This copy I got in Korea. I went to visit a friend and she bought me this copy while I was there. I cannot read it because I do not read Korean, but it is a beautiful copy with some unique illustrations in it. I got it in 2016. I don't know the exact publication date. It was new when I bought it, so it's not like an old copy, but I can't read Korean to see when the publication was actually released. This version of A Christmas Carol is from 1978, and it is just a little, like, encourage young readers with picture books kind of comic book adaptation. It's got really classic comic book art style. And then we have Scrooge. This is another comic book or graphic novel adaptation. This one's from 2012, so it's pretty recent. It's really got pretty art, though. This is a much more current, artsy graphic novel style than the 1970s one, which makes sense. This one is a little copy that was a part of some sort of literary set. It's interesting because the spine is oriented opposite of what you'd normally see. It has a little coloring in the front pages there where some kid got some colored pencils in there. I don't want my copies to be perfect. I like signs of love in them. And that little copy was from 1937. This is the oldest copy in my library, my little leather library one. It's from sometime between 1920 and 1925. This was after the publication house changed its name from Little Leather Library. But before they went out of business, of course. It's pretty fragile, so I don't open it very far. But it's a lovely little copy. This one is my favorite copy. It's definitely the most humble. It's got a construction paper cover, and it's highly abridged, but it is a wartime copy. It was released in 1943. I think it's really indicative of the importance of the story, that people put resources towards replicating it during wartime, when resources were rationed and limited. This is still a story that they saw as important enough to use those resources for. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, Go ahead and hit subscribe, and if you want to see what I was up to yesterday, that video is linked on the screen for you.